There are a lot of dumb things you can spend your money on, like this $95,000 hippopotamus sofa, or this $16,000 fidget spinner. There's even armor that you can buy for your guinea pig for just $24,000. I'm not gonna lie, that one might actually be worth it. But when you're in your 20s, you have the opportunity to set yourself up financially decades ahead of all your competitors. Or if you do the wrong thing, set yourself behind years. And I'm not going to tell you to stop buying coffee to save $3 so you can put it in some index fund. And a lot of people that I see making this kind of video are really old, and they've kind of lost touch of what people in their 20s actually buy. Because I'm still in my 20s and I've already made some of these mistakes myself, and I can see the mistakes that all the other people in their 20s are buying around me so that I can teach you guys and you don't have to make the same mistake. If you find any value in this video and you're interested in money invested in credit, make sure you subscribe. Alright, the number one dumbest thing that I see everyone wasting their money nowadays is sports betting. And I know a lot of people that are really financially responsible, but then I see them betting on things like sports. And this isn't always a bad thing. I'll make unofficial bets with friends if there's a big game or Super Bowl, and it can definitely add a lot more excitement to the game. But I think the problem comes in is when you start to use betting apps and platforms. Software engineers and app developers are paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a program that keeps you interested while taking more and more of your money over time. A lot of people talk about how marijuana is kind of like a gateway drug because the health effects aren't that severe, but later down the road you can get into more and more addictive drugs. And I view sports betting is kind of the same way because of the way it conditions your mind to view and think about money. I think the worst thing that can happen is you actually win a lot of money with sports betting, because then you have a false sense of skill and you think you can actually make money doing something like this. While the reality is sports betting is largely based on luck. And then that overconfidence in your fake skill is just going to lead to bigger and bigger losses in the future. Now the second worst purchase that I see a lot of young people buy is brand new cars. And even if you make millions of dollars, it still doesn't make sense to buy a brand new car because as soon as you drive it off the lot, it's going to lose at least 10% of its value. And then after 5 years, it's going to lose 60% of its value. That means if you spend $50,000 on a brand new car, that means it's only going to be worth $35,000 next year. And then after 5 years, it's only going to be worth about $20,000. Now a lot of finance gurus are going to tell you instead of buying a car when you're young, take public transport or ride a bike or even walk. But I'm going to have to disagree with that advice. I actually think getting a used car at a good price is one of the best things you can do when you're young. When I was still in high school, I saved up to buy a used car. I was able to work a job a little bit farther from my house that paid me a lot more money. So the ability to be able to drive at a young age actually made me a lot of money. The third biggest money make I see people in their 20s make is getting an apartment they can't afford. Now I understand wanting to have your own space and get away from your parents, but the cost of living is so high nowadays it's hard to be able to afford your own apartment. And I see a lot of my friends pay a lot of money for their apartments, but to be able to afford it they have to work extra hours and then they can't even enjoy the place that they're living at. Now there's definitely some places in America that apartments are a lot more cheaper, but for the majority of people it's hard to get ahead of life and have money to invest and save when 60% of it's going toward housing. So if you're still young, I recommend staying with your parents or renting a room from someone, at least until you have enough money to actually afford your own place. Leading us on to the fourth, in my opinion, the worst thing you can buy in your 20s on this list. And that's buying expensive electronics like the latest gaming console, TV, or phone. And the reason I'm so against this is you're making a purchase that's actively going to hurt you. And you have to think in second order consequences when it comes to these kind of things. So whenever I spend money on a new TV or phone or computer, I feel like I have to watch TV or be on my phone more or use my computer to justify the purchase. And the problem with this is it actively drains my ability to make money and then live life to the fullest. So sometimes it's almost like I'm stabbing myself in the foot when I'm giving myself nicer electronics. About a year ago, I broke my nicer iPhone, and as a temporary phone, I just got an iPhone SE. But because the iPhone SE is a lot smaller and unappealing, I found myself spending a lot less time on my phone, and this actually made me a lot happier. And then recently, I fixed my old iPhone so that I could have a better camera to make better videos. But then right after I got it fixed, I noticed that my screen time shot up because the screen is just so much more attractive and bigger and brighter. And because I spent the money on the phone, I feel like I had to use the phone more to justify the money I spent on the phone. And also, there's new electronics coming out every single year, and a lot of times the newer version's not that better than the old version. I remember I had an iPhone XR, and by the time I upgraded to an iPhone 13 or whatever it was, I really didn't notice that much of a difference. And I think that's especially true when you compare a lot of the newer iPhone models. The fifth worst purchase that I see young people buying is jewelry. Now I understand the pull towards buying really expensive jewelry, and I've bought some nicer chains myself, but I'm talking about the stuff that comes from popular jewelers or brands, because as soon as you buy it, it's going to drop from 40 to 80%. So I don't think buying nice jewelry is necessarily a bad idea, and there's some pieces that it can actually make you money over time. In one of my recent videos, I talked about how some watch brands like Rolex and Petite can actually make you money over time, and it's something really cool that you can walk around and flex with. But I want you to remember that wealthy people buy things that will make them richer, and poor people buy things that make them look richer. And remember that your sense of style is going to evolve over time, so some of the more extravagant jewelry that you buy now, you probably won't be wearing in the future. I know when I was younger and I was experimenting more with my style, I'd buy things like rings and metal bracelets, and those just aren't really things that I'd wear now. And if you do want to buy some jewelry, I'd recommend buying it directly from the source because you're going to get higher quality pieces at a lower price, and it's going to hold its value better too. Now, if you want to buy your mom or your partner a nice gift, that's obviously fine because it's a different purchase. I'm just talking about buying jewelry for yourself. Moving on to the sixth worst thing you can waste your money on is inexpensive, low quality items. You know what they say, if you buy cheap, you buy twice. And this is something that me and my family struggles with. I remember one of the homes I grew up in had a really big yard, so we went shopping for a lawnmower to get it. We kept going to Home Depot and getting super cheap lawnmowers, and every single one of them would break within like 2 weeks. Until we finally just invested money money into a nice John Deere lawnmower. And if we would have just spent a little bit more money on a quality item like this, we would have saved money in the long run. And make sure you remember that being cheap means you're using price as the bottom line, while being frugal means you're using value as the bottom line. Moving on to the next worst money mistake you can make while you're young is not keeping a budget. Now, I understand that the word budget has kind of a negative connotation to it, and at first I didn't want a budget either because I thought it'd be more restrictive and I wouldn't have as much fun. It actually does the opposite and gives you a lot more freedom to do fun stuff because you're not just wasting all your extra money on stupid stuff. And it's really hard to get on a plan to save and invest when you don't know how much money you're going to have at the end of the month and where it's all going. At the very least, I recommend tracking where your money's going because at least then you know where everything's going and you can make some adjustments if you want to. And it also relieves a lot of stress and uncertainty when it comes to money because you already know how much money you're going to have. One extra thing that I want to throw in there is make sure you have an emergency fund. I had to learn this the hard way. Before I turned 18, I got my first book on investing, and as soon as I turned 18, I opened up my first brokerage account, and all the extra money I was earning from my job in high school, I just put in the stock market. But a little bit later, some emergencies came up that I wasn't planning for, and I had to sell my stocks at the bottom of the market, and I lost quite a bit of money doing that. And also, this money just doesn't have to be sitting in some account depreciating. You can put it in a high yield savings account that's going to give you around 5%, so it can be earning money growing as it's sitting there. So the final point I want to bring up is being too strict with your money. Now, I spend a lot of time on this channel expressing the importance of saving and investing, but there's definitely a line. You don't want to be too frugal. This is something that I personally struggle with a little bit, and I often find myself losing out on some cool life experiences and fun things because I'm being a little bit too frugal with my money. And there's definitely a balance you have to find with being responsible with your money and enjoying life. And I found that budgeting actually really helped me with this. I just budget in some extra money every month for some random experiences or things that pop up. If you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe and let me know what I got wrong down in the comments.